another one.
What do you report on testing? What are, for your team, the most important things you are reporting to management or the complete team about testing? So the question is, what do we report on? So it depends on what level, or so for our individual Scrum team, we might report on KPIs, how many total defects we have open, how many we closed, how many of those defects are customer-based, customer-facing defects, like where they reported it, things like that. From a wider level, like let's say the QA team, QA management, we would track what hot fixes were done. We would track what we call them sub defects, but what the sub defects are defects that happened like during implementation. So let's say an engineer, they do some development and then now we're testing and we find a bug in the code, right? So then we create a sub defect so they can fix that bug, right? And then we close it within the story. It's not like a separate story based on something that was deployed. And then we track defects that are not sub defects. So let's say it was a defect that was created. Let's say you deploy something and then you find it in production, some error. So like production defects, right? So we separate it where it's a defect that the customer has reported, a defect that we found in testing doing something in production, and then a defect where it was a sub defect where we found it during implementation, right? So those are some of the metrics that we would track, right? From a management level. And then also what I like to track as well is test execution, right? What is the how many tests are run, how often they're run, right? Are they passing? Are there flaky tests? All of that, right? I like to track the API test to see how fast our API tests are running, how fast our UI tests are running, right? I like to track our test coverage, although the developers might be running the unit tests, but I also like to track the test coverage of the unit tests as well to see how far our coverage is, Those are all the things that I didn't even start the clock, but whatever. Those are the things that I generally track for the metrics for QA. Let me see. Anything else that I track? So we talked about the bugs. We talked about the executions. We talked about the flakiness, the pass to fail ratio. We talked about test coverage. Yeah, I think that's about it. Like those are most of the things that I would track. Don, is there any other QA type stuff that you would track? I don't know. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I track. I think we can skip Don a second, but yeah, there's so much more that you can track. It's just at what value will it bring? That is the question. What value will it bring? So always looking to add value, see how can this data help, right? So I don't want to just have report on data just to report on data, but I do like to gather the data because you never know. Like this has come handy many times in the past where I would just in the management system that we're using, we have a bunch of data, but then all of a sudden some weird request comes like, hey, do you have this data? I'm like, oh, well, I do have it, and then I'm able to generate a report based on the data. So always track and store the data, but the ones that you report on are the ones that add the most value based on the team that you're reporting to, right? So what you're reporting to the team would be different than what you're reporting to management or to QA management, so they can say all right, what is our progress going, all that good stuff, right? So shout out to that question. Though, you see, I love those practical questions that are actually trying to accomplish a goal.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.